Two things to keep in mind in exploring the wild frontiers of Dada. One, instead of art objects, Dadaists give us non-art. They stage performances and events. They cut up mass culture tidbits in anarchic collages. They invade art spaces with found objects that seem rude or absurd. Non-art. Two, Dada as an anarchic movement was prolific and proliferated throughout Europe and America, with different clusters of people participating in different cities. So we get a Dada of Zurich, a Dada of Berlin, the New York Dadaists, the Dada of Paris, and each geographical grouping had its own particular emphasis. So a founding moment in Dada can be traced to 1916 in Zurich, in a cafe named the Cafe Voltaire, named after Voltaire, the great 18th century writer who wrote the famous play Candide, which mocks the follies of French society. Let's maybe think of Voltaire as the Stephen Colbert of the Enlightenment. So the name of the cafe is telling us what to expect: mockery and the kind of unmasking of society's emptiness. So we're looking here at Hugo Ball, showing us both what Dada is and what Dada is not. It is not an art movement that had an artistic style. It's not even about making art objects. What we see here is Ball dressed up in a goofy costume, a metallic-looking cape and hat, which might be something out of a Tatlin sculpture turned into absurd clothing. He's got lobster hands, which is pretty hysterical, considering that artists are generally understood to make things with their hands. Those claws are not going to make anything expressive or beautiful. And what he's doing is reciting a poem. Now, we generally think of poems as very heightened, distilled, expressive uses of language. But this poem is made out of nonsense sounds, an absurd pseudo-language that he invents. So basically, we're looking at a photograph that documents an ephemeral event in which Ball pummeled his audience's minds with a parody of language. Now, language is generally used to communicate. Art is supposed to communicate using visual languages. But instead of communication, we have this guy kind of imploding meaning in on itself. Go ahead. You could try to read it yourself. Karawane. Or let's listen to a recording of Hugo Ball reading.
E l'homme le fitalomina Volminus Bambala boom Hatzi La fairo E la minuscula plum bash Ralaia Entre sa flumen flovolalla Failo bash Faljada Folidi Flumbash L'homme le fitramoninai Baumbalabum
The sounds in Hugo Ball's poem Caravane are to poetry as the shapes in Jean Alp's Collage are to art. What do I mean? So here we have a collage that has been arranged according to the laws of chance. So what is this? We've got paper. Paper is a cheap non-art material. I mean, it can be used artistically with drawings, but it's very much an everyday material. You use paper to write notes, to write letters. Now this paper is torn, so it's it is what Arp is doing is not creating but destroying. It's not an act of craft, it's an act of destruction. And then that is very important because this collage is not a composition. Composition is the academic high art term for the purposeful arrangement of the parts of an artwork into a meaningful whole. Composition is associated with the idea that an artist's intention is to express something. It is also associated with the idea that the artist works to create some kind of harmony and balance, something worth looking at. What Arp did was to rip up the paper and then just drop the bits of paper and let them land where they did, pasting them there. So he allowed chance, the laws of chance, not artistic intention, not a sense of purpose and composition to guide him. Here's another Dadaist poem by Tristan Tzara. Unlike Hugo Ball's, we actually can read the words, but they're very instructive about what Dada is doing. Take a newspaper, take some scissors, choose an article of the length you wish your poem to have. Cut out the article, then cut out carefully each of the words in the article and put them in a bag. Shake gently. Then pull out each, cutting one after the other. Copy them down conscientiously in the order in which they left the bag. The poem will resemble you, and you will be a writer of infinite originality and of charming sensitivity, although incomprehensible to the masses. So he's giving us instructions to just use chance. Take something pre-made, what we will see is called a ready-made, an article in a newspaper, in the cheap everyday mass media, cut it up, destroy its sense, and then just let it mix up and shake out randomly. And the twist is that this resulting poem actually resembles you. So the twist here is that the idea of art as the expression of someone's soul or psyche, someone's purpose or meaning, that this is actually being mocked and imitated in an ironic way. If it resembles you, then you therefore are just the chance mixed up makeup of mass culture stuff thrown in the bag of your brain. And he also has the twist that you are a writer of infinite originality. So all the things that high art esteems, originality, sensitivity, this is made absurd. Even the idea that this is incomprehensible to the masses, the idea that great art is something that only the elites can understand. So the term ready-made is Dadaist in that it's non-art. It's not something the artist has tried to craft or expressively compose. And this is perhaps the most famous ready-made. This is not an art object. It is, in fact, a urinal. I probably didn't need to tell you that. It's hysterically funny how the caption treats it as if it were an art object. Ready-made glazed sanitary china with black paint. So in 1917, Duchamp entered this in an exhibition in New York, and he signed it with this joking pseudonym, R. Mutt, as if it were an object of infinite originality and charming sensitivity, to use the words from the Tristan Tzara poem. But what it does is it actually disrupts the art space and creates a moment of intrusion of something that's actually, usually associated with embarrassment, bodily functions, in the sacred space of the museum. Really, in a sense, deflating the balloon of art, puncturing it, and giving us, when you deflate a balloon and you get the flaccid little piece of rubber, as if it's been destroyed. This is a destructive move, to destroy the kind of exalted status of art. And here Duchamp gives us another ready-made, since the Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo da Vinci, so Duchamp didn't have to make it. he didn't actually buy the Mona Lisa. He buys a postcard, the kind of souvenir postcard that you would get if you went to the Louvre, although now you don't need to buy the postcard. You would probably take a selfie if you can get through the lines. So the idea is he's taking something that he hasn't made. He's appropriated a high art icon that's been brought into the realm of mass culture through photographic technology. And now he's scrawling the beard and the mustache, the Johnny Depp pirate beard and mustache on the Mona Lisa in this rude way. He's defacing it, right? It's an act of defacement. With the urinal, you could say that Duchamp sort of defaced the space of the gallery and the exhibition space. And here he's defacing high art. And the idea of high art as, beauty and glorious achievement, which is what the Mona Lisa stands for. And of course, then he gives it this title, which if you read it with a French accent, and my French accent is terrible, but it sounds sort of like Elle ha ok. It's sort of like she has a hot ass. So there's a kind of overturning of hierarchies and a making absurd that which has been thought of as high art achievement. In terms of non-art materials, Schwitters, one of the German Dadaists, coined his term Märzbild. Bild is German for picture. März is the last half of the word commerce. So he's like actually cutting off a word and turning it into almost a nonsense word, the way we saw with the poetry. And you could say that all of this chaotic layering and juxtaposition of non-art elements like tickets and stamps and cuttings from newspapers, this is like the breakdown of language in Hugo Ball's poems, right? Because each fragmented bit is decontextualized, mixed up, mingled and mangled with other stuff. And so meaning is obscured, not revealed. So collage was an especially important form for a number of the Dadaists, and especially in the German region, in the Berlin Dada movement. Hana Hook was especially brilliant and forward-looking in her work because of the way she uses and critiques mass culture imagery. This was the period when photo magazines for the masses had just been launched. And this is the beginning of what we call the culture of the image, the spectacle, consumer desire. This is now thoroughly steeped into our life. We have photos living on our phones. But in Hook's time, that photo culture was very new. She worked for a magazine geared for women at a time when there was tremendous talk about the new woman. Feminism was pushing for women to be free to have lives of their own, to work, to be able to have their own money, even to vote. And in 1918, women in Germany had won the vote. Hook was one of those new women living on her own in Berlin, making her own life. And her strand of Dadaism is very clever about the ways in which women were already caught in an image culture that fixated on sexualized bodies as commodities. The looks of women as being how they are to have a ticket in the commodity economy, and how that's part of celebrity culture, as in her image, Marlene. So this is a photo of the first International Dada Fair. Notice it's not called an exhibition, it's a fair. And these are a number of the important Berlin Dadaists. There's Hoch right there. Notice that they've created their fair in this room filled with all sorts of different kinds of images, including a mannequin of a soldier wearing a gas mask. This is making clear that all of their Dada work is very much related to the imagery of the carnage of World War I. And Berlin Dada had the strongest and most explicit political engagement. Not surprising, since Germany lost the war and was economically devastated by that loss. And also because German artists were closely engaged with artists in Russia before, during, and after the Russian Bolshevik Revolution. So keep in mind that this strong political strain of German Dada, as in this cartoon by George Gross, will actually carry on into the 30s, when one of the great Dadaists, John Hartfield will turn collage into anti-fascist propaganda.